Hey everybody, and welcome on in to Party Pregame here from the rooftops in Auburn. Second to last show here of the regular season as Auburn gets ready to take on New Mexico State, and as we like to jokingly call it, SoCon Challenge Week. I know New Mexico State is not in the SoCon. I think Chattanooga is, and another team in the state is playing them today. But, man, we got 2 more Saturdays of this college football regular season to wrap it up. For those of you that don't know me, I am Patrick Bingham, and welcome on into Party Pregame. We have an exciting slate of games and things to talk about today. And we kind of talked about it on the podcast and a little bit in the preview story. If you haven't read that as well, you can find all of that on patrickparty.com, or you can sign up for our email newsletter, also on our website. But there are some things to look for in this Auburn-New Mexico State game, and we'll kind of break through all of that. But excited you joined us today. Really fun week coming up with Thanksgiving week, and of course, it's Iron Bowl week, and we know the anticipation's been building since really both teams rise throughout the second half of the season to get to where they are. So it should be a lot of fun, but there is one game and one Saturday in the way of all of that, and that is Auburn and New Mexico at 3 o'clock in Jordan-Hare Stadium just behind me later today. But we're going to start our show how we always like to start our show, and that is with our look back at the 1983-93 and 2013 seasons. A little programming note. Because of the way the calendar's changed over the course of, I guess, time with college football, there are more weeks and more potential games to be played later. So we kind of got off schedule when, like, if you go back to, like, 83 and 93, like, this is Georgia week, right? And 13 Georgia week would have been last week. But we already did Georgia when Auburn played Georgia, and so here's what we're doing. We are knocking out, there was an extra game in 2013. 13 there was 12 regular season games. 93 and 83, I remember 93 was 11-0, right? So we are not going to do 1983 or 1993 this week. We are going to do, and neither of those teams had an SEC championship to play in for different reasons. And so we're going to do the 2013 Tennessee game and then the 2013 SEC championship game. Next week we will do all the Iron Bowls, and then we will do a Patrick Party pregame prior to whenever the bowl game is. We'll find that out in a couple weeks. And then we will do the bowl games for 83 and the national championship game in 13 for the bowl games. So that is our plan, but it's a little weird this week. We're only doing 2013. Let's get into it. Auburn and Tennessee played up in Knoxville to start that in November to remember for the Tigers. Notably, Chris Davis returned. I mean, Auburn just scored a bazillion points. Chris Davis returned punts back for touchdowns, a little sign of things to come. Remember him throwing up in the trash can and then doing it again. It was kind of crazy. And Auburn's last time they played in Knoxville was 2013. Kind of crazy how long these traditional rivals it's been since Auburn's played up in Knoxville, a team they played all the time. But Auburn got a big win to kind of really kick off what was to come in 2013. And then, of course, how can you forget? People forget this, but people were picking Missouri in this game, and Missouri was awfully good. This was a top 5 matchup. I think Auburn was like 3, Missouri was like 5, and people were like, well, can Auburn just do it again? They played Georgia and beaten them, and they played Alabama and beaten them. It was like, can they do it again with Missouri? And they were able to. It's the highest-scoring SEC championship game ever. All around, just back and forth, offensive crazy game between Malzahn and, I'm sure Gary Pinkel didn't like it. He was more of a defensive guy, but 2 great offenses, 2 great teams, so improbable. Nobody would have ever picked Auburn or Missouri going into the season. They were both so bad in 2012, which is what made it all the more fun and crazy. But Auburn ends up getting the win. And then, as we all remember, Michigan State upset Ohio State, clearing a path for Auburn to be into the BCS National Championship game for the final time in the BCS's existence. Fun day. I was there. really fun game, high scoring, back and forth, and that Auburn played. That was Auburn's last SEC championship game in the Georgia Dome. Auburn played in the 2015 season in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game when it was still that in the Georgia Dome. So, neat little moment for that. That's our blast from the past. Let's go ahead and get into today's Saturday slate. There's not a lot of top-heavy games, but there's a lot of just kind of keep an eye on it games. Whereas in other weekends, this is probably not the game you have on, but it's a game you're checking, or if you have a secondary TV, you're kind of flipping it on that one. This is a lot of these are check the score kind of games. It's hard for me to find this is of course there's no Oregon Washington or any kind of big game where it's all right, you need to sit down and watch this game through its entirety. There's none of that, Michigan, Ohio State next weekend. There's none of that, but there's several just just keep flipping the channel. One of these might turn out to be kind of interesting, and we'll go from there. So we start Michigan, Maryland. I think we all know by now, for the uninitiated, the Michigan sign stealing scandal has been maybe the greatest scandal ever because there's no victims. Nothing bad actually happened, which is why it's so much fun and why we can have fun with it. Nobody died or was harassed. So that sounded bad, but they weren't. So it is purely just a college football thing. Nothing legal happened. No one's going to jail. And so it's really just funny. And, it was one of those where Peter Burns had a hilarious tweet that just kind of recapped all of Michigan's take on this, but it's changed 100 times. At first they were we never did that. And then they were we did it, but everyone else does it. And they did it to us. And then they puffed up their chest to the Big Ten and were we're going to file stuff in court. The Big Ten comes down and says Jim Harbaugh, their coach, can't coach for the final 3 games. They're we're filing a court thing. But then the court thing wasn't going to happen until this past Friday. But then the Big Ten waited to do it until Veterans Day when the courts were closed. I mean, and Michigan said that. It, got really ugly. And then Michigan goes and beats Penn State. And then their coach, the interim coach, cries on the sidelines. And everyone's joking. They're Jim Harbaugh did not die. He's just not coaching. He's in the team hotel. You don't have to cry. And the whole thing is they're doing this whole we are the American story. Everyone should be cheering for us. We are. It's almost this, we're being persecuted. Persecuted is a strong word. They didn't say that. But they were we're the victims. And everyone's you cheated and you're getting punished. How are you the victim? It has been so funny. Well, so then the Big Ten, so there's this whole, they're going to battle back and forth. And the Big Ten pretty much said, so when all the stuff came out, when the Big Ten issued the 3-game suspension before the Penn State game out, 24 hours before, if that. The Michigan players, J.J. McCarthy, their quarterback specifically, all tweeted, bet. They're bet. And then I saw a funny tweet when the Big Ten came out this past Friday and was Michigan will serve its suspension. Michigan will do this. And pretty much said, we're the conference. We are going to put you in your place. We don't even care if you're the Tiffany brand of our league. The Big Ten pretty much said, all right, bet. And it's been so much fun. Then Michigan just fired their linebackers coach, who apparently destroyed a bunch of evidence. So it's one of those things where it's I have never really seen a scandal in college football where it's it has progressed daily. There was a week stretch where something new and wild. There was a manifesto. I mean, and again, when has a manifesto ever led to anything good? Ever. When has anyone ever been I'm writing a manifesto and we've had a positive change? Literally never. And so, anyways, there was a Michigan manifesto. It was 400 pages. Wow. It's one of those things where the story has advanced every single day, and it has just been so hilarious. And what's been so ironic about the whole thing, and I know we're not even talking about this game against Maryland. Maryland's falling apart, and Michigan's going to blow them out. It's big noon on Fox. Michigan's been great. And I don't even know how much the Jim Harbaugh thing even really matters, him not being there. Especially this game. Michigan's the better team. But dare I say, that's my talk on this game. Let's go back to the scandal, because the scandal is far more interesting. Number one, please, God, let Michigan win the national championship this year, just because it would be the most funny outcome. Because I like the idea of Michigan winning the Big Ten championship and then handing them the trophy. Then Michigan winning the national championship, despite all of this stuff. But then you can't even really say oh, it's not validated, or we should take it away, or it doesn't really count. because everyone knows. So, like, even if you, like, number one, they're not stealing signs anymore. And number two, if you were afraid they were, everyone knows. Like, to change your signs. Like, that's not, like, a secret. Like, like, there's no, like, competitive advantage anymore. If anything, now you know that not to do your signs. Like, the whole thing's hilarious. And I just want more drama. I think that's all we can really ask for. Because, and what's been so funny is for so long, Michigan was this, like, big, proud, like, NCAA. Like, they have been known to, like, turn other people in the Big Ten and point the finger and be like, how dare you pay players? How dare you do this? How dare you do that? And so it would be really funny if them, in the NCAA's dying hour, they punished and hurt the team and program that's been so, like, puffed up for them this whole time. It'd just be hilarious. It's so ironic. It's been so funny. I have enjoyed this because it really has nothing to do with me, and it's been awesome. And I'll say this. Man, we've talked about the Ryan Day conversation has always been so stupid to me because it's like, the guy is good. He's taking you to the playoff. Like, stop whining that you have a problem with him. But what I would say to the Ryan Day thing is, they want to beat Michigan, right? And they have not liked that they have lost to them the last 2 years. And of course, if the kid makes the field goal against Georgia, Ohio State's the national champions, and we're having such a different conversation. But I just think it would be, like, everyone's like, oh, like, Michigan, like, they're not going to have their coach, blah, 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 blah. How much more pressure does that put on the other team? I talked about this with the Penn State game. We talked about James Franklin, like, doesn't beat, Ohio State and Michigan, and it's like, how much more pressure and how much, like, worse does that look? Like, and then you can't even beat a Michigan team that has their coach. Like, how bad would that look for Ryan Day? How much more would they freak out if it was like, not only have you lost to Michigan 3 straight years in a row, not only have they, like, clearly, like, leaped over you a little bit, but now you can't even beat them with their coach. It'd be hilarious. This game won't be that interesting. I just felt like I needed to put it on because I really wanted to talk about Michigan because it has been so fun. I have loved it so much. There's been so many funny memes. I mean, it has been wonderful. Another team I'd like to shout out, Louisville. This game could be interesting because, again, like, Miami's record sucks, but I think they're kind of decent. Like, they're improving under Mario Cristobal. I don't fully understand what's going on there. Maybe I never will. You look back. This has been so funny. So I have been playing this little game with myself, and I haven't really told anyone this, but when Auburn let go of, or fired, Gus Malzahn in that coaching search, and you remember the names that we were hearing about, people that were like, oh, will Auburn hire X? Mario Cristobal, he got a huge extension. He hasn't really panned out at Miami, and it looks like Oregon got an upgrade in Dan Lanning. Billy Napier, not looking too good so far. Who else? There's another one that I was like, Brett Venables has, like, been very up and down at Oklahoma, and it was looking good this year, and then it's just kind of like, There was one more where it was Auburn was considering this guy or potentially talked to this guy, and I'm like, man, like, none of these people that we even felt like Auburn missed on, like, have been that good. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Miami, they've been up and down. They've been very weird. Louisville's not going to the playoff. They lost to Pittsburgh. They're not going to the playoff. They lost to Pittsburgh, like, months ago. But they're number 10. They're whatever and 1. And they're going to play in the ACC championship game, most likely, against Florida State if they haven't already clinched it. And I just want to say what Louisville has done with what Louisville has done in this first year under their new coach, it's been so impressive to me. And again, Louisville's not going to the playoff, but the fact that Louisville is, like, in the top 10 and, like, if they continue to win, like, will likely go to, like, a New Year's Six bowl, and the fact that Louisville is, like, just still in the conversation, like, that just speaks volumes to what they've been able to do. Yeah, Jeff Brom. So Scott Satterfield leaves and goes to Cincinnati, and what has been just horrible. I mean, they are so bad. And, like, they are literally so bad. And just one of the more puzzling hires. They have power washed the Scott Satterfield so much off this program. Jeff Baum has come in from Purdue, and it just immediately has had success. I mean, Louisville, shout out to Louisville. That's all I want. This game could be interesting. I guess you can watch it. I don't know what else will be on this time slot. Also at 11 a.m., SMU and Memphis, both 8-2, both have a shot to get into, I believe, the American Conference Championship game against Tulane. SMU, Rhett Lashley, his name's been talked about with a couple jobs. We'll see. I'm just saying it's been on the list. That doesn't mean anything. Memphis, they've really turned it around this year. They had struggled the last couple of years under Ryan Clark. They're also 8-2. Two teams. Well, I know SMU's going to the ACC. Atlantic Coast Power. SMU, my bad. Two teams that didn't get the Big 12 invite, but, and I guess SMU is literally about to leave, but two teams that are in the upward projections. Memphis, like, there's no reason Memphis shouldn't be highly successful, especially in this iteration of the American Athletic Conference. Both teams have played really well. This is just an interesting keep an eye on it game, you know? If the other ones aren't good. It's on ESPN2. Make sure to use that national TV board. If you're on our email newsletter list, you can print that out. That'll be a fun thing at home. App State and James Madison. You know, I would like to say, I'm sorry for James Madison. The NCAA said no to their appeal. So there's a rule, and I think we've talked about this, and if you don't know, turn on College Game Day after we're done, and that's all they'll talk about. When you move up from FCS to FBS, you cannot go to a bowl game for 2 seasons. I have no idea why that's a rule. Apparently, it is to prevent teams from just trying to jump up without being ready. Like, they want you to be ready and be competitive. But then it's also one of those things where it's like, well, then if they are ready and competitive, then they don't get to do anything. And James Madison, the last 2 years, has not been able to play in the Sun Belt Championship game, will not be able to go to a bowl game. James Madison is undefeated, ladies and gentlemen. They would be ranked. They cannot be ranked in the College Football Playoff Bowl. James Madison would go to a New Year's Six bowl. Like, James Madison would literally go to a New Year's Six bowl. Game day's there today. They're playing App State, who's, like, been up and down, but, like, don't get this twisted. App State, proud program. App State might end up, like, backdooring their way into the Sun Belt Championship game because James Madison can't play. James Madison's the best team in this league, so there is that. They've had a great season. I mean, like, they have tried to get lawyers involved. It's gone to court, and the NCAA has just been like, nah, we're good, thank you. A ranked good game that no one's going to be able to watch because it's on the Pac-12 network. And something funny I saw this week is the final football game on the Pac-12 network will be Notre Dame and Stanford. Notre Dame will be on the Pac-12 network for the final time. I think that's so funny. Utah and Arizona, Pac-12 network. Arizona, Jed Fish. A name we were just like, huh? When they hired him. And they have been really good. They've been really good. They've had a lot of other. It was one of those things where, like, they were like the team that, like, just kept upsetting people, and we were like, okay, this is cute. Like, they're having a great season. Like, they're making strides, and then they, like, just kind of kept winning, and we were like, oh wait, they're, like, good and, like, for real. And I was wrong when I was like, Arizona State, it's gonna take a couple of years, but they're on the rise, and I don't even know what's going on with Arizona. No, Arizona's the best team in the state this year. They take on Utah. They've just kind of gotten pushed around by some of the bigger boys this year. Kind of a step back. I know they've had injuries. Their quarterback has been in and out. I also have not said this. We are not doing picks at the end of the show. We are going to do picks. I haven't done this in a long time. We're going to do picks from inside Jordan-Hare Stadium before Auburn's 3 o'clock kickoff. So we'll do 2:30 games and up, which means I'll pick all the games I just talked about. Michigan beats Maryland. Louisville beats Miami. SMU and Memphis is the toss up, so flip a coin. I'll say SMU for fun. Actually, no, I'll say Memphis. App State, James Madison. And this one, Arizona. Even though I feel like Utah's due. 2:30 on CBS. One final time for these two teams. Well, no, Georgia will play in the SEC Championship game. One final time in Neyland. Georgia and Tennessee. It's a helmet game. It's ranked. Had to put it on. Kind of a boring week. Not going to be a good game. Tennessee got boat raced in Columbia last week to to Missouri. Georgia, here's what's going to happen. Like every Georgia game this year, I don't know if you've watched many. I've watched like 2 or 3, except for the Auburn game. Shout out Auburn. Tennessee will probably score on its first or second drive. They'll get excited. Georgia might score. Tennessee might score again. And then we might get to the end of the first quarter and be like, oh, this is competitive. Let's turn it on to CBS. And then Georgia will score the next 30 points. Tennessee might score 7. And that'll be the game. That's how a lot of them have gone. That's how it went against Ole Miss. Granted, that's how most big games go for Ole Miss. But that is probably how it's going to go. Georgia's really good. They're into form. I've been talking to some people, and I don't think they've watched the Georgia game for the most part since the Auburn game. If that's the last time you watched Georgia play in its entirety, they're very different. Brock Bowers is back. They are firing on all cylinders. They are very, very good. And the game against Alabama will be interesting, but I probably like Georgia. This is a game I would watch. North Carolina, and ironically, I'll be at the Auburn game. But North Carolina and Clemson, I know Clemson sucks, and they have been bad, and I blame it more on the wide receivers than the quarterback. I know the quarterback, Cade Klubnik, has not been great, but where have we seen, in my opinion, the biggest fall for Clemson? Of course, having a generational talent at quarterback makes all the difference, but their receivers are not what they were in those championship seasons. North Carolina, they're going to score 1 million points, but defense. Defense, and I struggle to think that North Carolina is going to be able to stop Clemson, and Clemson's like not good is kind of my other thought. So I'm interested to see where this one takes us. That honestly, either team could win that game. Let's go out to Los Angeles, Big Ten matchup, right? UCLA and USC on ABC should be another fun one. A lot of shine falling off this one. Chip Kelly's name's kind of come out on the coaching list. Kind of more of our keep an eye on this. If he loses one of these next 2 games, it's just kind of just doing the same thing over and over again. Of they're good, but then they're not. USC, man, they could use a win. Their defense is very bad. And you know what? I'll say this. I don't want to get into the whole Mississippi State thing because I don't think we're talking about them. But, yeah, they play Southern Miss this week, and they might lose. And Southern Miss is not good. They're not going to beat Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. Here's the thing with Mississippi State. And I don't know how I got to that. Oh, because Zach Arnett, I don't feel bad for him. Do not feel bad for him. I know it was 1 year. I know the situation was crazy weird. Do not feel bad for him. And this is not me, hating on Zach Arnett. Watch him be USC's defensive coordinator next year. I'm calling it. Watch him be USC's defensive coordinator next year. He will land on his feet, ladies and gentlemen. A game you're probably like Patrick Y, but I put this on the pick'em. I'm going to be so transparent. I put this on the pick'em because I thought most people would pick Air Force because I've been putting a lot of Air Force games on there because they've had a good year, and I'm picking UNLV because Air Force has lost the last couple weeks and has really fallen apart, and UNLV and Barry Odom have been really good. They've been really consistent, and Barry Odom should, he is, granted, things were pointing in the right direction with UNLV. I will say this. Before they fired their coach, and we were kind of like, what? UNLV was going in a good direction, but Barry Odom has kept them going in that. I'm picking UNLV. I hope you already did our Patrick Party pick'em and picked Air Force because I put this on here because I thought I knew something. I'm going to be so honest. If you haven't done our Patrick Party Pick'em and you want to pick UNLV with me, patrickparty.com/pick'em, or just go to patrickparty.com, click the Pick'em button. We've had really great participation the last couple of weeks. Not as much this week, people. So let's keep it up. But been a lot of fun. Shout out our first ever 10-0 winner last week, Matthew Clegg. So congratulations to him. And let's hop on the Gus bus, everybody. The Golden Knights and the Red Raiders both have 5 wins. Winner goes to bowl game. There's a lot of those games this week. This is one of them, and I want to talk about it because of Gus. If they could been, this is going to be hard for Gus. I'm picking Texas Tech. I'm sorry. And I don't know. Here's the problem. I do all of my different pick'em pools at different times throughout the week and don't remember who I pick in each one. So I probably, and if it's like a swing game, I pick different teams on different ones just because I don't remember. But I'm going to pick Texas Tech in this one. No one's going to be able to really watch this game unless you apparently get Fox Sports 2, whatever that is. I think it's a non-HD channel for us. So we won't be watching that. But I will say that Texas Tech is rounding into form. They beat Kansas last week on a big upset. UCF, they've started to figure it out. They've had some guys come back from injuries. It's been a tough first year in the Big 12. Texas Tech, man, they need to get to a bowl game. I was so huge on Joey McGuire coming into the season. I was a supporter. I felt really good about it. I was like, Texas Tech, team to watch for. They're going in the right direction. No, dead wrong. No, not even close. Let's talk about some other Big 12 teams that will stay Big 12 teams. Kansas and Kansas State. Kansas has not won this game in like a million bazillion years, and Kansas State has a really good team. I know they've lost some toughies recently. Kansas got upset. This one isn't David Booth. Should be a fun atmosphere. In our night slot now at 6 o'clock, I'm picking Kansas. I probably am going to pick this later, but I'm picking Kansas State. There's just something physical about Kansas State, and Kansas's quarterback is like never playing when I turn their games on. He's always hurt. He's coming back next year. He is always hurt. I will never understand. And I'm picking Kansas State. This is the night game I would watch, and I probably will watch it until I go to the movies tonight. Whoa, shouldn't have spoiled that. Washington and Oregon State. Wow, this is going really long. Here's the thing. Washington's really good, and so is Oregon State. This is the first time they've ever both been ranked both teams in the top 10 ever in this thing, which makes sense. Why would they be? Man, when Oregon State can be the Joker. Oregon State is like, gosh, I'm cheering for them these next 2 weeks. Here's what Oregon State can do. Here's what they can do. I believe they are still in contention for the Pac-12 championship game. Oregon State has Washington and Oregon and a potential Pac-12 championship game if they win those games. Oregon State could be like the Joker and just be like, I'm just here to burn the whole thing down and drag you with me. You know, they didn't get the bid to any of the other conferences. They're probably going to go to the Mountain West or whatever we're going to recall the Pac-12, the Mountain West version of the Pac-12, and they can ruin Washington's season and take them out of the playoff. They can ruin Oregon's season and take them out of the playoff, and then they can ruin someone's season and win the Pac-12 again in its final season. Please be the Joker, Oregon State. It would be #hilarious. Also, today, Florida and Missouri. Missouri, they're playing great. I got to shout out Missouri. Shout out Eli Drinkwitz. After that Auburn game last year, we were like, Missouri, what is happening? What is happening? What are we doing with this coach? It kind of felt like loser that game's going to get fired. Loser that game actually got their job and is having a great year this year. Shout out Missouri. They're going to kill Florida. Florida's defense is horrible. I don't even want to have the Billy Napier conversation. He's not getting fired because the recruiting's going well. If the recruiting wasn't going well, he'd be gone. But what is happening? This has been is it just like he's got to argue the point that like progression is like positive progression is not always linear. I have no idea. Nebraska, Wisconsin, I believe winner of this gets to go to a bowl game. Wisconsin's been so underwhelming, and this Phil Longo offense, think back to those North Carolina days when Phil Longo was at North Carolina. It has just made no sense. And it's just not gone well. And I think the transition's been just really weird. Nebraska is rounding into form. I know we all forgot about them after they lost the first couple games of the season. They're playing well. If they could go to a bowl game in year one under Matt Rule, that would be a big accomplishment. I'm kind of cheering for them for no particular reason. Don't really want to play them in a bowl game, though. So just a game to keep your eye on. Let's watch that Washington-Oregon State game. Let's watch it. Maybe have Florida-Missouri on for like the first 10 minutes, And then Auburn and New Mexico State. Auburn's final non-conference game of the season. Tigers and Aggies. Look, New Mexico State's had a good season. They have 8 wins on the year. They're going to a bowl game for the first time in a long time, in consecutive seasons, like 50-something years, 63 to be exact. And should be a fun matchup. We're going to spend a little bit of a second half of our show previewing this game. There's only so much to say. You can also listen to our podcast, Patrick Party Podcast, where we went into more in-depth. And if you want some like real specific numbers and not just me more rambling, PatrickParty.com, we have our preview story titled preparation. And then the podcast was called Tuning Up. And I was trying to think of like ways to say basically the same thing, but calling it something different. So here's the deal with New Mexico State. And here's really the point I'm trying to make in this game, the narrative I'm trying to make in this game. This is my whole point. Auburn's going to win this game. And this is the thing, is like I have to say it like artfully, and like I can't just like say it when you're like writing, but I can just say it here. Auburn's going to win this game. It is not going to be that close. The talent mismatch is crazy. But what I do think could benefit potentially Auburn, and something to watch for, is Diego Pavia, I believe is how you say his name. New Mexico State's quarterback is a dual threat quarterback. He is utilized almost perfectly dual threat on their offense. They average about 207 rushing, 214 passing, like average per games. Like, so it's like right down the middle. He is their leading rusher when you do their sack adjusted numbers. Meaning, for quarterback rushing yards, they run 10 yards forward, but then they take a 7-yard sack. Now they have 3 rushing yards in the game. You take the sacks out of it to see like how many yards did they actually rush for. I do think the sacks matter if you're taking sacks. That's kind of more on the offensive line too. Do with it what you will. Their offense has been really strong this year. I think it's been the strong suit of their season. And look, I think when you get down to the lines of scrimmage, Auburn's lines of scrimmage have been so much better this season. They have really improved, and we'll talk about that when we get to Auburn's defense. But I think for Auburn's defense, a side of the ball that has been so strong these last couple of weeks has really come into form, has really taken on the Ron Roberts identity that we talked about so much in this offseason. We talked so much about delayed blitz packages, and we talked a lot about like the multiplicalities and like having so many, I've never figured out how to say that word, and all the different types of defenses and coverages, and like cover all the different types of covers and everything they do, all the eye candy, and that's just become such a thing in this modern day and age of like doing everything you can. Auburn kind of went from the Kevin Steele defense and kind of evolved into this style more under Derek Mason. They kind of kept it under Jeff Schmedding, and then are continuing it under Ron Roberts. Different iterations, but have really made that transition from Steele to Derek Mason. But I think it wouldn't hurt. And this is the argument I'm trying to make. I don't think it hurts that Auburn has to keep their head on straight and focus a little bit against this quarterback and keep the momentum going potentially. And it is a little bit. This guy's nowhere near Jalen Milroe's talent. I understand. I don't want to call them the same thing because they're not. But I don't think it hurts to make a little bit of preparation. And that's kind of the argument I'm making, is it's a tune-up game. This isn't going to be close, but I think it's a good preparation game. Guys are getting healthy. DJ James has been back. Nehemiah Pritchett's been back. I think it's going to be huge to get reps against a style of offense like this. I think that is just going to be the big thing. Is it's going to be huge to get reps against this kind of offense. And again, it's not like Alabama's. I know that. All of this is with the caveat that it's New Mexico State. We just talked about this defense. Like, guys from all different areas for Auburn have finally started to come alive. How many guys in that secondary have gotten an interception this season? It's been crazy. Auburn's continued that streak, and it's one of those things where it's just come from everyone. Guys have stepped up. Jalen McLeod got SEC Defensive Player of the Week. Guys really all on that defensive line. Larry Nixon's had a big season. Keldrick Fogg, a true freshman, has had to step in. Kayan Lee, a true freshman. And now it's like these true freshmen have gotten these reps. These guys have gotten these reps, but now we got the veterans coming back. Could you get – and I know. Iron Bowl's looming. That's how I started the story. Could this defense – be getting ready for a big-time performance next week? Could the wind start blowing over the weirdness that happens in that stadium behind me? So I think that is something to watch for in this game. On the offensive end, it's just keeping it going. I think it's just building the reps. Auburn's at its best offensively, especially in the passing game. Auburn is at its best when they are able to throw the ball around to all the different receivers. They don't have a wide receiver one. They don't. If anything, it's Rivaldo Fairweather, who's the tight end. They don't have a wide receiver one, but they're at their best when, as a defense, you don't know who they're throwing it to because it could be anyone. When Auburn was getting up big on Arkansas early, and I said that, I was like, how big was that start? I just kept saying different wide receivers' names. I was like, Caleb Burton, Javarius Johnson, Jay Fair, Rivaldo. I mean, like, you just kept saying different guys' names, and so I think that is so crucial, especially in this one as well. Getting into that up tempo, getting that first down to really staying above, because you can't run tempo when you're losing yards or you're behind the yards of scammers. So how huge is it to get a 6-yard run on first down? Stuff like that I think are going to be huge. Jarquez, we're on a 1,000-yard rushing watch. He is at 770, somewhere in there. I would imagine let him get like 125 today. I think my take is let him get to where if he gets 100 in the Iron Bowl, he gets it. Which is going to be hard. I'm just going to say it. So shout out Jarquez. I know he missed a game, and it was a rough start, but he's really rounded into form. Can Auburn get guys like Damari into the game? I know they played a lot of people last week. Same thing, just getting reps. Well, still a lot to work on. Free said that, and Auburn's going to win, but Auburn needs to come in, be the more mentally mature team. And we saw that against Arkansas. They didn't let that lead slip at all. They were dominant the entire game. There was no worry that Auburn was going to lose that game. And so can Auburn do that again against New Mexico State? That's basically all I have to say. I've said that about 3 times now. So, yeah, let's get into Bingham's bets really quick, and then we'll head on out of here on Patrick Pregame, our second-to-last show of the season. Michigan's an 18.5-point favorite against Maryland. Take Michigan in the spread. Louisville and Miami are even. It's a pick 'em, ladies and gentlemen. I'm picking Louisville, but I think that game's going to be really close. Miami had a 6-4 record, by the way, for inquiring minds. Rutgers 6-4. They play teams a little bit closer than you might think. They are going to lose to Penn State this week. Penn State is a 20.5-point favorite. I don't know what to do with that. I do not know what to do with that. Battle of the Uglies. Michigan State 3-7, Indiana 3-7. Man, how bad does Indiana and I'm blanking on Tom Allen need this win? There's just no sign of hope. It's just such a big contract. They gave him such a big buyout after that 2020 anomaly season. Indiana's a 3.5-point favorite. That's a hard one to pick, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to. Mississippi State is a 17.5-point favorite. This is gonna be close. Even though I know Southern Miss is bad. I know, but I kind of think it might be close. We'll take Southern Miss on that spread. You didn't hear it from me. Purdue is a 2.5-point favorite. Northwestern is 5-5. What does Vegas know? I'm going to take Northwestern, though. Sorry. SMU is a 9.5-point favorite over Memphis. I think I picked Memphis, so I'll take Memphis in that spread. James Madison, a 10-point favorite over App State. Big game. I'm taking J-Mo in that one. Arizona is a 1-point favorite over Utah. I picked Arizona, so I'll pick them to win. Georgia's a 9.5-point favorite over Tennessee. Dogs all day long in that spread. Clemson is an 8-point favorite over number 20, North Carolina. I'll make this pick later, but I like Clemson in that spread. Don't tell anyone. USC is a 5-point favorite at home to UCLA. I'm taking the Trojans. I'm taking the Trojans in the spread. Oh, what else? Oregon State or Oklahoma State. They got blown out by UCF last week. And, of course, Gus Malzahn won on Auburn, Arkansas week. Very funny. Really enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious. I think Oklahoma State will have a bounce-back game. I expect them to win by more than 6.5. Oregon State is currently a 1-point favorite at home to Washington. Please, Oregon State. We'll make that pick later. Texas is a 7.5-point favorite to Iowa State on the road. It'll probably be weird. I expect Texas to still win. Georgia Tech is 6.5-point favorite at home to Syracuse. Georgia Tech can get bowl eligible despite their loss to Bowling Green at the beginning of the season. I like the Yellow Jackets in that one. Let's look at the Auburn game real quick for inquiring minds. Where is it at? I don't see it. That is so odd. Maybe there's not a line on the Auburn game. Auburn is currently a 26.5-point favorite. I'll take it, but it's going to be real close. It's going to be real close, ladies and gentlemen. All right. That's it for Fabulous Bingham's Bets. Only one more week. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. That is going to do it from our show today. Remember, we will make our picks from inside Jordan-Hare Stadium as we count you down to kickoff between Auburn and New Mexico State. We'll do the 2:30 and nightcap games. Outside of that, it's been a fun show. Thanks for joining us here on Patrick Party Pregame. Enjoy your college football Saturday.